This movie starts with Alina walking with her friend in a club. Alina tells of how she thinks Ronaldo probably gets messages from different girls asking him to get them pregnant. The friend remarks that she received a text from some twins wanting to have a with her. Alina mentions the daring things people tweet to her and how she dares not entertain them. Fran, Alina's boyfriend, meets Alina and kisses her. They share a smoke, and he tells her they'd be leaving soon. Fran, a gamer and cartoon enthusiast, goes over to meet the guys, Tito and Guillermo. Tito talks about how ladies above 35 years of age see men as sperm banks. He points to some ladies and suggests that they go over to them and ask them out. He tells them what to say and assures them that those words will grant them access to sleep with the ladies in less than an hour. Guillermo pulls him so they can go meet the ladies, but he declines. Tito says the ladies are over 35, and they should wait for ladies under 25. Just as he says that, a lady comes to him and offers to spend the night with him. Tito follows the lady and mimes to his friends that she's less than 25 years of age. Guillermo looks left behind, even as Fran tries to cheer him up. Fran and Alina are at the hospital. The doctor explains what the issue is with her. He mentions that Alina's lack of childbearing at her age might have caused some damage. She tries to argue that she isn't that old, but the doctor reminds her that she is old with regards to reproduction. Alina doesn't like to be called old. The doctor goes on to mention that Fran has a low sperm count. He explains that Fran's sperm is lazy and behaves abnormally. The doctor advises that they start taking meds. Alina is concerned that the meds can affect her hormones and in turn affect her emotional state. The doctor thinks every woman has the tendency to act crazy and hormones just give a minute of inkling. While Fran and Alina drive home, Alina complains of how fast she's gotten to her pre-menopause years. Fran is still disturbed by what the doctor has said about him. They talk about vitro and Fran seems very knowledgeable in it. Alina wants to know how he knows about it. He explains it was through a YouTube documentary that has a sad ending as the couple's lives got destroyed. Fran thinks they should take out time to think about doing vitro. Alina thinks Fran is only trying to avoid the idea of doing vitro. There is a children's party outside the compound and Koldo talks to Fran about his dreams. He mentions how he comes home to an empty house, and it feels very peaceful and enjoyable. Alina hands a chocolate to a child, and the child's mother comes and takes it from him. The mother states that kids below 4 years of age shouldn't be having chocolate. There's an awkward feeling even as Fran comes to her. She apologizes and the mother takes her child away. Alma, Alina's sister, brings a glass of wine for herself and Alina. They clang the glasses to cheer and drink. Alma shares how the wine came about as they enjoy the taste. Now at home, Fran is sitting on the bed when Alina comes in and sits too. Fran notices Alina doesn't wear a smiling face and wants to know what the matter is. She says teasingly that she's only adhering to Fran's suggestion of thinking about vitro. There's a continued back and forth between them as Alina is still vexed with Fran. She hates that Fran would end up asking his friends, Tito and Guillermo, for advice about it. Fran thinks this is Alina pressuring him and states that it won't help him. Alina covers herself with a duvet and lays down. Fran moves close to her and whispers his thoughts. He wants them to keep trying the traditional method of childbearing. He calls her sweet names and kisses her, but Alina isn't really having any of that. Fran gets up and leaves for the sitting room. Alina hopes Fran isn't going to masturbate as she thinks Fran shouldn't be wasting the already few sperm he has. Fran is now in the sitting room and is checking the internet to learn more about vitro. He sees the story of a couple who tried vitro, but went through a tough time. He messages the guy who has the story and asks for advice. Much later, the guy replies, and they have a friendly chat as the guy tells him how he sleeps with a lot of women. It's morning, with both Fran and Alina are preparing for the day when Fran walks into the kitchen with Alina in it. Fran tries to dissuade Alina from vitro by telling her they might end up having twins. This revelation makes Alina more interested in vitro as she jumps on Fran and kisses him in excitement. Making his way outside, Fran stands in front of a mirror and the picture of Victor, his new internet friend, comes on the mirror. He's pictured with 2 ladies, and he's telling Fran how he told his wife off, and now he sleeps with different ladies. Fran shakes it off. He rides his bicycle, even as Alina is shown dancing at home. Fran is now at his office. At the entrance, he passes a queue of people waiting to get interviewed. He meets Guillermo and Tito, who introduces Gloria as the new trainee to Fran. He doesn't forget to tell Gloria that Fran is the creative director. Gloria praises Fran's designs, even as Guillermo begins talking about his part in the project. Fran calls them to the corner and wonders why they're acting like they won't be interviewing the other applicants waiting outside. Tito says Gloria looks hot and dashing, hence why she should be picked. Guillermo concurs with Tito. Alina visits Alma and tells Alma that she would be an aunt very soon. Alma is interested and wants to hear everything about that. Alina gets inside Alma's house and finds a group of breastfeeding mothers discussing. Alina joins them and gets irked by one of the women breastfeeding a 5-year-old girl. Her contribution to the group is awkward. She ends up revealing Alma's plan to stop breastfeeding her child, which is against the group's way of doing things. Tito and Fran are playing video games at the office when Gloria comes and informs them she's leaving. When she leaves, Tito tells Fran he's attending a party at Gloria's house and is excited that Gloria has 2 roommates who are aged 25 also. He reveals his fantasy with Gloria and her roommates. Fran doesn't want to know if Tito eventually sleeps with Gloria, but Tito mentions he'll definitely be the first to hear. While they play their game, Fran reveals his plan of doing vitro. As Tito teases him, Guillermo comes in with a dog and is panting. He explains that the dog wouldn't leave his side as soon as it saw him at the bus stop, so he decided to allow the dog to follow him. Fran and Alina are at the hospital waiting to see the doctor. They see a lady who quickly notices they're there for vitro. She begins telling her story and mentions it's her 6th time going through the process. She says things that frighten them, even as another lady seated there admonishes her not to do so. Fran and Alina are now in the doctor's office. The doctor, in his usual manner, explains the process to them in a very playful manner. When he explains, he uses sports to make illustrations. He remarks that if the process fails, their money doesn't get returned. He hands over some medicine to them and tells them how to ingest it. Fran is very interested in knowing if they can have regular sex, and the doctor confirms they can. While they walk back home, Fran thinks they should ignore the doctor. Alina mentions that he's the best around, and she has paid a part of the fee. Fran isn't aware of the fee and reminds Alina they shouldn't hide things from each other. They mention some other rules that puts them in a fun mood, then they kiss and walk on. Fran is in the toilet and is trying to get his sperm in a bottle. Alina sends him a picture of her breasts, and he uses this and gets his semen in a little jar. He takes it to the nurse, who notices how little the semen is. Seeing that, he starts explaining that the jar isn't fit for semen collection. The nurse tells him she has to confirm if the amount of semen in the bottle would do the job. The nurse comes back and tells him to try again. Alina goes to see Alma and sees her using a breast milk extractor. Alina is there to babysit Nico, Alma's son, while she goes to a meeting with her boss. While she's on her phone, Nico comes and pesters her. She drops her phone and goes to get something to keep him busy. Nico picks her phone and sees the picture of the female parts labeled. He is wowed and asks if Alina has a clue. Alina runs to him and takes the phone away from him. She sees it as a funny incident, but goes on to explain to him in a fun way. Fran, Tito, and Guillermo are going over their new cartoon for a presentation they will make the next day. Fran thinks the cartoon needs lots of work, but Tito thinks it's fine. Guillermo is more concerned about his new pet, the dog. Back at Alma's place, Alma enters and Alina complains that Alma has taken so much time as she has to go to the clinic for her egg retrieval. Alma reveals she was given an offer at work, but declined as it means she'd have to put in more hours. She encourages Alina, and Alina leaves. At the hospital, Alina is there all alone. She sends messages and voicemails to Fran, who doesn't respond. Fran is at work and has left his phone in the bathroom. He gets a hold of his phone and sees the messages from Alina. He excuses himself and runs out to meet her. Back at the hospital, Veronica, an artiste, encourages her and tells her she'll be lucky. She invites Alina for a beta meeting where women going through the vitro process meet and keep their spirits high. Alina isn't sure about it. They introduce themselves, after which the nurse comes in and calls Alina for her session. She can't wait for Fran anymore, and she goes in. The doctor is carrying out the process on Alina, and in his usual manner, makes jokes with the process. In no time, Fran rushes in and apologizes. Just as he enters, the doctor concludes the procedure and advises them to make themselves available for the next meeting. As they walk out of her hospital, Alina ignores Fran. He continues appealing to her, but the appeal falls on deaf ears. Fran promises that the incident won't repeat itself again and promises to stand by her throughout the process. This calms her down as they hug and kiss. She shares that she'll be going for the meeting Veronica invited her for and wants Fran to accompany her. Fran agrees at first, but declines after finding out that the time clashes with the time for his presentation. This further vexes Alina, who thinks Fran would put every other thing before her. She then goes for a walk alone. She goes into a store and starts binge buying. Alina is home, and is watching TV. She's eating chips and covers herself with a duvet. Fran walks inside and tells Alina their quarrel is pointless. He tells her that they are made for each other and hands a couple of her favorite things to her. She lets out a bright smile as Fran sits beside her. He tells Alina that Tito and Guillermo would go on with the presentation while he accompanies her to the clinic. Alina now wants him to go for his presentation, but Fran already made the decision to accompany her, and he's cool with forfeiting the presentation. They then share a kiss. After what seems like a time of intense sexual intercourse, Fran is wrapping weed. They plan on creating a YouTube channel for their baby, but draw lines for other social media platforms. Fran is done wrapping the weed and writes on it. He tells Alina they'll only smoke it when she's done with the whole process. Fran and Alina are at the beta meeting. A lady shares her fears that she thinks the vitro procedure hasn't worked for her. She mentions that she doesn't have the symptoms that come with pregnancy. Her husband holds her hand and comforts her. The leader of the meeting makes her calm down and says people like her are the reason she invited Veronica to the meeting. She welcomes Fran and Alina, and they are greeted with a warm applause. Alina and Fran introduce themselves. Fran says he doesn't take the process very seriously and admonishes everyone to be fine with whatever outcome they get. Everyone, including Alina, is disappointed with Fran's way of thought. He notices the disappointment in their faces and wants to stop talking, but decides to give an explanation. He thinks that one not having children isn't the end of the world, and so many people are out there without kids and are happy. He references his auntie. While he's on that, his phone rings, and he excuses himself to go pick the call. It's Tito on the phone. He gives Fran some good news, and Fran doesn't hide his excitement. He apologizes and goes back to his seat. Fran is at the bar with Tito and Guillermo, having some drinks in celebration of their successful presentation. After Tito and Guillermo tease him about his semen, they tell him Gloria is celebrating his birthday that day. Tito mentions that there'll be ladies around the age of 25 there. As they arrive at the party, they meet a lady who remarks they are handsome. As they enjoy the compliments, they watch her go on to kiss two guys who stand facing each other. As they go inside, Fran remarks that he thinks they are too old for this kind of party. At that moment, Gloria walks in. Seeing them excites her, and she greets them. She leads them to the garden, where the actual party is being held. They meet a crowd of boys and girls dancing and having fun. Guillermo complains of his weird habit of scratching parts of his skin anytime a lady is around. As he says that, a lady who claims to be an online student from one of his courses approaches him. She praises his skill and looks, and thanks him for being helpful. Guillermo is shy, and while he replies, he begins scratching his skin. Tito signals for him to stop that. While the lady leaves, Tito and Fran come to him, and are proud that a girl likes him. As they talk, Tito lights a smoke. He forgets to put off the fire, and it burns the hair of Teresa, Gloria's friend. He puts the fire off and apologizes to the lady. He suggests they get a scissor and help her trim the burnt part out, but she doesn't want that. Gloria comes in and introduces Teresa to his bosses. They laugh about the incident and begin dancing. Alina is seen sleeping on the sofa when she receives a message from Fran that he'll be late. Back at Gloria's place, and with Tito and Guillermo gone, Fran and Gloria are high from the alcohol and smoke. They are sitting on a couch and chatting when Gloria mentions that she'll be going to New York to do a film course. She advises Fran to try other things, so he doesn't regret not doing them in his older days. Fran observes that his friends have gone and decides it's time he goes too, even though he doesn't feel like it. It's morning and Fran tiptoes into the house. As he tries to make his way to the other part of the house, Alina calls out to him. She complains of how she couldn't get through to neither him nor his friends the previous night. She had mentioned earlier that they have to be in the clinic in an hour. She sarcastically tells Fran to not follow her to the clinic. Fran agrees, and this vexes her. They are at the hospital, and the doctor is carrying out the vitro process, while telling his usual stories using funny sports analogies. The doctor asks Fran a question, but he doesn't respond as he dozes off in a standing posture. Back at home, the meal order arrives and Fran goes to get it. As they prepare to eat, Alina tells Fran to get the soy, and he does. After some seconds, she tells Fran to get the blanket as she's cold, and he does. Alina wants some fruits too, and this time, it irritates Fran a little bit. He tells Alina that her standing up to get stuff wouldn't affect the embryo. It seems she's trying to protect. She agrees and moves to run her own errands, but Fran doesn't want any issues arising and decides he'll run it for her. Fran tells her it's finished, and she asks him to go get some from the store. Fran doesn't know what to do, but agrees to go to the store. Alina tells him to pass her the progesterone before he goes. Fran brings the wrong one, and Alina lashes out at him and asks why he wasn't attentive when the doctor was giving out instructions. She later agrees that she might be doing too much, but promises that it will get better. Fran then goes out. The next day, Fran goes to the office. He sees that Guillermo has made a space for his dog close to his spot and begins lashing out at him. He tells him to either take the dog to his place or to a colonel. It's evening at the office. Tito tells him he was too hard on Guillermo and leaves as he has a date with Teresa. Gloria comes and congratulates him as an expectant dad. As she leaves the office, Fran looks at her ass. Fran buys a box of fruit home and hands it over to Alina. She doesn't like it and questions why Fran can't give her exactly what she wants. She says she wants tea and Fran runs to get it after a little argument on who will get it. Fran comes back and explains that he doesn't know the difference in teas and hopes Alina can come buy it herself. Tito and Guillermo are going over feedback. The cartoon people who accepted their presentation want the main character in the series to be changed. While they try to keep it away from Fran, he shows up. He's angry that they have probably not done the presentation well, hence the people's opinion. Tito thinks if he had made the presentation, then they wouldn't have been selected. Tito says something that gets Fran angry, and he shoves Tito. Guillermo separates them, and Fran walks away fuming. Fran is home, and Alina notices his demeanor. He complains about the latest development at work to her, and thinks he should have gone for the presentation, but instead went for the beta meeting. There's a back and forth between Fran and Alina. Alina complains that she's had enough. Fran isn't having it her way as he tells her he's tired of how the vitro process has changed their lives in a negative form. He tells Alina that she's making the process so hard for him, and he can't take it any longer. He says he never wanted kids, and this angers Alina, who storms out. After a long period of sitting by the roadside, Alina goes over to Alma's house and hopes she could stay for some time. She tells Alma of the fight with Fran, and Alma welcomes her in. Fran is at the office, and Tito walks up to him and suggests they do things his way. This softens Fran, who now wants to look into what the cartoon people have suggested. Now at Alma's house, they are having dinner, and Nico asks Alma if she has a clitoris. This shocks his parents, who want to know where he heard that from. He says Alina taught him that girls have clitoris. He goes on to say he wants a clitoris, and this puzzles them. Alma goes to meet Alina in a bathroom and confronts her. As they have the conversation, they notice blood in the bathtub, and this troubles them. Alina is at the clinic, and after the doctor checks her, he tells her that the vitro process wasn't successful. He tells Alina that some eggs are left, and they can begin the process again, but she doesn't want to try again. The doctor explains why she should get another procedure started as soon as possible. He goes on to make his point with his usual storytelling manner, but Alina angrily tells him to stop the jokes or else she'll do something drastic. As Alina is seen lonely and taking walks, Tito advises Fran on fatherhood. Fran concludes he doesn't want kids still. Fran seeks to meet Alina. When they meet, Alina lets her displeasure known on the man Fran has become, but he says he still thinks they can work out as a couple. She shares the story of how her dad would carry her up a hill at a tender age just so she could get healed from a breathing problem. Fran praises the father. Alina sheds a tear and tells him that things can never be the same. She says she'll come over when she's ready and get her things. They now go about their separate lives doing things that make them happy. While Fran goes about his activities, certain things remind him of Alina. At the office, Teresa brings a bouquet of flowers for Tito to celebrate his birthday. They share a kiss and leave the office. Guillermo says he has an appointment with the dog's hairdresser and leaves too. Gloria meets Fran and tells him she has secured tickets for the brownies. Fran and Gloria go over to Gloria's apartment. They start kissing and caressing. Gloria takes off her pants while still wearing her miniskirt. They're about to have intercourse when Gloria excuses herself and comes back with a box of... She makes Fran choose one, and they resume intimacy when Gloria tells him to turn over. He's confused but trusts her. At the office, Gloria flirts with Fran, and he doesn't quite know how to respond. Tito comes and remarks that after what they heard yesterday, he thinks Gloria might be too hot for Fran. Seeing that Teresa's flat is close to Gloria's, he explains the noises he heard and how Fran was screaming. Alina carries Martin to Alma's workplace and waits for her at the entrance. Alma comes out and secures a corner to breastfeed Martin. Alma's boss comes out and scolds Alma. She hates that Alma is breastfeeding her baby on the walkway and thinks Alma is disgracing the company. Alma gets angry and spills the breast milk on her boss in retaliation. When the boss storms out angrily, Alma and Alina laugh at the situation, while Alma remarks she's been free from her work problems. Alina goes to meet Veronica, who has just given birth. She remarks she wants to have a child, but Fran isn't interested. Veronica tells her to take the same route as her and gets an anonymous sperm donor. Veronica advises her to do it now so she doesn't regret it later. While Fran and Gloria continue their naughty escapades, Alina drops a voice message for Fran telling him her plans of going back for the vitro process and hopes they can sell their car so she has some money. Fran and Alina meet and Fran hands over a part of the money made from the car sales to her. They talk about how their lives have changed since their breakup. Alina apologizes for trying to rope Fran into becoming a father, against his wish, then takes the money and leaves. Alina now has a big baby bump, and she's enjoying her life as an expectant mother. Fran's company has expanded as they've hired more hands. A season 2 has been approved for their cartoon. While they celebrate this milestone, Tito announces that he'll be a father soon. Fran is surprised as Tito has always held the notion that having kids doesn't matter. Tito explains that he's doing it for Teresa and is totally in love with experiencing fatherhood. While they continue, Kathy brings in some kids for them to help look after as their mother has traveled. Fran accepts them. Fran is making a call outside when he sees Guillermo and his girlfriend walking the dogs. He smiles at them as they walk on. Fran informs Tito and Guillermo of his plans to move to London. They say they'll miss him and hug. While Fran packs up his stuff, he packs Alina's remaining things and goes over to Alma's place to give to her. They tell themselves how good they look and continue chatting. He tells her he's moving to London and decided to bring her remaining stuff. He goes on to apologize for hurting Alina and remarks he got stressed out and ruined the beautiful thing they got going. He's glad that Alina's plans are working for her. Alina thanks him and he leaves. Veronica comes and sees that she's moody. She tells her to call Fran so they can talk things over and get closure. Veronica gives her car and urges her to go. On her way, she parks by the roadside and alights. After a while of soaking in the pressure, she smiles and continues the drive. Alina gets to Fran's place and meets some kids there. Fran welcomes her inside, and she catches up with Fran and the kids. Fran puts on some music and dances for them. As he dances, Alina and the kids are excited. Alina decides to dance too, and everyone joins her. Shortly after, Kathy comes back and gets the kids. As they leave, Alina decides to leave too as they wish each other well. They find it hard to say their goodbyes, but finally have to. Fran isn't comfortable and runs down the stairs to wait for Alina, who is in the elevator. On his way down the stairs, he sees that Alina is going back up, and he starts running up to meet her. They kiss and go inside for an intimate moment. While they lay on the bed, Fran asks Alina to come with him to London, and she smiles at the offer.